Hey everybody, and welcome to DGS Productions. I'm your host, DGS. Now, last week's DGS picks that I posted on the Facebook page were a little bit off, but just as a refresher, I had Wysocki coming in at first, with Paul McBeth coming close behind in second, followed by a long shot third for Peter McBride, and fourth with Josh Anton. However, things didn't turn out exactly like that. In first, we actually had Paul McBeth coming out on top after his amazing first round, which we'll get into here shortly, followed by Wysocki, who made a commendable comeback and try for the title, followed by the third place Kyle Crabtree, the highly rated yet less highly traveled 1039 player. And we actually saw a tie for fourth place with Nate Doss and Jeremy Colling coming back to mount amazing last rounds to establish their top 5 finish. So the first thing we need to talk about from last weekend's Masters Cup is the first round, second card explosion of Paul McBeth. We saw a record-breaking 57, which is a 1104 rated round. That is Paul McBeth's first 1100 rated round of the year, and actually his first since August of last year, which I believe was in the Ledgestone Open. So Paul absolutely went off. Not being on the first card, we do not have coverage of this, or at least post-produced coverage. There is coverage out there, however, from John Tompkins, Mr. Supreme Flight, so please do head over to his page if you have not seen this amazing round compiled. Some big things went on here. He really kind of started off slow, kind of just taking it easy with a 3 on holes 1 and 2, followed by a quick 2 on hole 3, and a then bogey following that. And then he followed that off with a 2 on 5 and 6 and missed his opportunity on 7, really playing it safe as there was the cliff, definitely danger behind him, and then kind of went off from there. 8, 8A, 9, 10, 11, and 12 were all 2s. Some of those really, really impressive 2s. The amazing thing about this round is he made it look so easy. This golf course is nothing to be laughed about. This is very intense, very, as Jeremy Colling put it, very much noose around the neck disc golf. You've got cliffs everywhere, you've got trees that can kick you into brush and kick you into poison oak, as some players experienced last weekend, but it is not an easy course. And to go 15 down on 24 of the toughest holes in Northern California really shows off how much Paul was determined to come back after that Konopiste Open defeat and to really capitalize on top of that. Wysocki, however, finished second, but that was no shame to him. He technically finished 10 strokes behind Paul. However, his ratings were still 1042 for a first round, 1045 for a second round, and an amazing comeback of a 1080 on his last round at the golf course. If you take away Paul's first round, I really think Ricky is in there. If you average them out, it's a really tight race, and Paul just had the upper hand on that first round. Some other finishes of note are going to be Nate Sexton in 6th place, shooting a 68, a 68, and then a 52. This is Nate's highest finish at the Masters Cup in the past, I'm going to say 5 years. Nate has really struggled to get in the top 10 at this event and has really struggled, especially on the De La Viega disc golf course, to establish himself and to come up with comfortable scores and consistent scores. Even though we saw Kyle Crabtree finish 3rd, I really think the most impressive finish and the most impressive outing, besides Paul's first round, would have been Austin Turner, who took 7th place. He shot a 67 the first round, a 71 in the second round, and then a 51 in the third round. I really think if he would have had that second round in lock and had that same score, if not maybe a couple above, he would have been catapulted to that top 5 and maybe pushed Jeremy and Nate Doss down a notch.
Yeah.
Shooting a 10.35 first round and a 10.64 rated third round, I really think these are impressive outings for Austin Turner, someone to definitely watch out for at the remainder of this year, and even more so next year as he begins to grow and as he begins to see this experience on the road. Another notable finish, and a guy who saw a ton of TV time this past weekend, is going to be from Japan, Manabu Kajiyama. He shot an astounding 65 on his first round and then fell off of that a little bit on the second round and gained a little bit of that back in round 3, finishing himself at 9th place, tied with Josh Anthon. Manabu is just someone who is incredible to watch. Someone who, even though he finished 9th, was somebody I really wanted to see on that last stage just because of his solid form, his really floaty and glide, and how much he glides across that tee path is really, really great to watch. Now, Manabu did tie with somebody we saw on day 1 lead card coverage, and that is going to be the controversial Josh Anthon. It was very interesting to see him in the first round coverage on that lead card coverage that we saw on day 1. This was Anthon's first time being on one of the bigger camera sets. There is coverage that from the St. Patrick's Open that he won earlier this year, however it wasn't to this scale. Something that I really wanted to see from him was how he was going to react under those lights and under that pressure. It didn't really look like the pressure really got to him. It looked like he was trying to go for everything, and it was pretty fun to watch. There was a lot of distinct lines and a lot of maybe some strategies that we don't typically see from the players nowadays. For instance, going over top on, I believe it's hole 14, is something with an Excalibur that he turned over. It was really something that wasn't expected, but as you could tell in the coverage, those guys were astounded at where it landed and astounded at the effort that he gave that. Something I think that would be interesting to see is how old those discs are that he is throwing. That Excalibur, for instance, I know it's a Star Excalibur, but that thing's got to be beat. That thing's got to be at least 4 or 5 years old, and that's got to have some dust on it. Needless to say, I think Josh Anthon is definitely someone to watch out for this year. I don't think he's on the platform that Ricky and Paul are as of yet. I think Ricky and Paul just have the upper edge on him. They have the distance, they have the putting, maybe the consistency that maybe Josh doesn't have or doesn't have yet. But I think it will definitely be interesting to see what happens the rest of the year. I wanted to take a minute to talk about some Spin TV coverage. Now, people on Reddit and people in the YouTube comments really went crazy over the Kona-Piste Open coverage that Spin TV brought. The main focus of that hate and of that commentary is going to be Avery Jenkins. I thought most of it was pretty harsh and undeserved. However, some of it should have been a little bit more constructive criticism. And I think Avery either saw that or somebody in Spin TV saw that and said, Avery, why don't we try something new? And this week, the best combo that they had, in my opinion, was Ian and Avery. Ian took on a little bit more of that play-by-play coverage and pushed Avery Jenkins into more of a color commentary role. And it was really, really nice. Ian got Avery to open up, he got him to relax, and it was really nice to see that character and to see that color come out of Avery, really improving the broadcast, and especially over that Kona-Piste Open coverage where it was just kind of listening to a radio show. I really appreciated that, and Avery, if you're watching this, keep up the good work. I'm really rooting for you. Something that's interesting that maybe not everybody picked up on is Paul in the third round. If you watch the coverage from CCDG and Spin TV, he actually, for the first part of the round, switched back to his traditional stance. So for the majority of this year, we have seen Paul in a straddle stance for his putt. It's been a little bit more comfortable for him. From what I know, it eases up on his back, as he's had a little bit of back and knee pressure in the past that has kind of inhibited his putt. So I thought it was very interesting to see him with such a big lead take that initiative and go back to that putt. I'm assuming that from that traditional stance he gets a lot more power, but the accuracy currently isn't there, which is why he has resorted to the straddle putt. His straddle putt to me is doing great things. He hit that 100-foot jump putt from his straddle, basically from what looked like his normal straddle. So it doesn't look like his straddle really lacks any range. I'm just interested to see why he did that. A big characteristic that shines through on that is Paul McBeth's consistency and his persistence to continue to work forward. He was 10 strokes above and there was no way that he was going to lose. And he knew that in his mind, but he wasn't going to take the pedal off the gas. He was going to continue to build. He wants to get that world championship back. He wants to see himself at the top of the USDGC. And I think he's really set in as tough as he is this year. I think he's even set in and determined even more this year than we have seen him in the past years. Now after, I believe it was 9 holes, Paul reverted back to that straddle stance. I believe that was after Ricky pulled off a couple different birdies and Paul just didn't want to deal with it anymore, didn't want to risk that, and wanted to put on a show for the crowd. Something else that I noticed was when Ricky hit his long putt that we got to see some Raptor legs on, you could really see the kind of camaraderie between him and Paul McBeth. That was something that is interesting, given their history, their back and forth, that they kind of both acknowledged there that this was now just a show for the crowd, a show for the cameras and everybody around. Now this past weekend at the Masters Cup, we had 2 big players drop out pretty much the week before. And that's going to be the Discmania Bash brothers and Simon Lizotte and Eagle McMahon. I feel like this past weekend we definitely felt the void of their presence, especially at such a large event. The flashy and big armed nature that these 2 characters bring to the stage definitely was a little bit missed here. However, it did also allow some younger players the opportunity to move up and to be seen. For instance, Kyle Crabtree, Austin Turner, even Peter McBride, etc., to kind of jump up and to be on that chase card or be on that second to chase card and get that experience in. Some big news actually coming from Eagle McMahon, and in his vlog, he actually gave away the majority of his discs there in the Czech Republic. I didn't believe this at first, however, after hearing what Steve Hill from Ulti-World Disc Golf had to say, that was indeed correct. Eagle gave up all but I believe 2 of his discs, which to me is astounding given that some of these pros have discs in their bag that they've had for maybe 5 or more years. So this past week we saw in his most recent vlog, and if you haven't checked it out, please do. I'll try and post a link in the description below. But if you haven't seen it, he talks about how he's starting with completely new plastic. He showed up to, I believe it's a C tier or B tier there past weekend, just to kind of see how he would roll out and to get, kind of back on his feet after he's had a string of tournaments that he's either finished, subpar or just not up to what he believes he should finish. Now in this tournament that he did attend, he didn't get first, however he did come in second to Joe Revere. Joe Revere is a 10-21 player, really a staple in the upper Midwest area, having been on a lot of CCDG, a lot of Colorado coverage. So not a huge defeat for Eagle McMahon, but something that it was nice to see him put on a smile, nice to see him back on the course, and nice to see some positive coverage come out of his vlog, since everything we've kind of seen up until now with the exclusion of the Aussie Open has been pretty hard on himself. And I believe he will be back, not for the Utah Open, but he has re-signed up for the Beaver State Fling. On the FPO side, we saw a huge battle this past weekend at the Masters Cup. While there isn't currently any post-production footage of the FPO cards, I do know that CCDG was there covering the lead card, so I will be interested to see them push those out. For my DGS picks that I had last weekend on my Facebook, I had Valerie Jenkins coming in first, followed by Paige Pierce, with Sarah Holcomb taking third and Hannah Leatherman popping up to fourth. This weekend we actually saw Paige Pierce come out with an astounding couple rounds, shooting above her rating and conquering that first place spot. She was followed closely behind by Jennifer Allen, and then Valerie Jenkins taking third, and Catrina Allen popping up to fourth. Paige Pierce started off the weekend a little bit slower than I think she wanted to, only shooting a 77 in round 1 at the De La Viega Disc Golf Course. Now that score put her in first, however, it put her in reach with the likes of Valerie Jenkins, Sarah Holcomb, Catrina Allen, and Nicole Bradley. After round 2, however, she did manage to pull away a little bit. She shot a 73 at the De La Viega Golf Course, a 989 rated round that really widened her gap. And on day 3, round 3, she really stated her claim and really grabbed hold of that number 1 spot and didn't let go. Last year she struggled a little bit on the golf course, but this year she showed that she had that under control and really put that time into recovering and improving off of last year's rounds. Now if Paige Pierce came out slow, Catrina Allen came out even slower. On day 1, round 1, she shot an 82. Something that I'm sure she wished to forget, and it seemed like she did, because in round 2 she shot a 75 to kind of boost herself up into that top 10 and within range of that top 3. In round 3 she didn't shoot quite as well as I'm sure she would have liked to, shooting a 66, bumping her up into the top 5 and finishing 4th. This past weekend we also saw the return of Madison Walker. Now Madison Walker hasn't been out of the scene for a really long time, but has been at least for a couple months. She did get injured back at the Nick Hyde Memorial and had some wrist problems that kind of prevented her from coming back quickly, or at least as quickly as she would have wanted. Ulti-World Disc Golf had a great interview with her, so if you want to check that out, I will post a link in the description below to that podcast from Stephen Hill of Ulti-World Disc Golf. While she didn't finish as well as I'm sure she wanted to, she did manage to capture the sole possession of 9th place, putting her in this top 10 finish. Having followed the chase card on day 2 myself, I was able to see a little bit of her play as well as the play of Kristine King, Sarah Holcomb, and Catrina Allen on the second day. So I joined on with the chase card around hole 9, or hole 10 in the scoring as it is, and I really thought there was an interesting vibe to this card. Now when I came on, I don't know what happened before, but I do know what happened after and during. So for the next 7 to 8 holes, I feel like there was a lot of tension within the card. On hole 11, shooting back, it got a little testy. Catrina Allen is known for her quicker play, her no-nonsense, and I feel like that was definitely seen here. She was a good maybe 50 to 60 feet in front of somebody else's lie, and she went before them, not even, caring. And then she putted out way before anybody else did, not even giving them a chance to do their outside the circle putts, and she was already inside the circle. So I think it all kind of started or stemmed from that, and then going to the next tee pad, it just got a little bit more testy. On the tee pad, Catrina Allen hopped up as if she was going to go first, and then it got to be a question of who's actually first. And they went back and forth there, and I think it really stemmed from that. So I don't know if it was the play that was going on. I don't know if everybody was just not happy with their rounds up to that point, and so it was just a lot of tension within the card. But it was definitely a very interesting card to follow. Now the next real big tournament isn't until 2 weeks from now. So we have this upcoming weekend that will see a break for the majority of the top class of players. So next weekend I will actually be coming back for a consecutive video on Thursday to do a preview for the Utah Open. The Utah Open is a big golf course and a big long course that we're going to see some bombs and we're going to see some OBs. Maybe a little bit similar to the Masters Cup golf course that we saw it on, but I believe it's a little bit longer. And that's our show. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, as well as check us out on Facebook for all future updates and postings throughout the week. Till next round, I'm DGS.